Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into the Quran's foundational texts, really trying to pull out the framework many contemporary scholars use.
Right, this idea known as ijaz al-ilmi, the sort of scientific dimensions within the text.
Exactly. We'll look at how it was revealed historically, and then, assess some of these claims that seem remarkably specific, especially for their time.
It's really an exploration of how a religious text doesn't just allow, but actively seems to mandate intellectual engagement. It kicks off not with strict dogma, but really with a question, doesn't it?
It does. Let's start right there. That first moment, around 610 CE, Cave of Hira, the Prophet Muhammad, alone, unable to read or write, and the angel Gabriel confronts him. The command is powerful. Read, or maybe recite.
And that response, I cannot read. That's so fundamental because even though he was unlettered, the very first verses revealed, immediately they pivot straight towards creation and how we know things, epistemology.
You mentioned creation, right?
Yeah.
Created man from a clot.
Precisely. And then who taught by the pen? So right from the outset, it's framed as deeply spiritual, yes, but also intensely intellectual.
Okay, so we see the historical start in this immediate intellectual angle.
Yeah.
But what's the underlying theological engine, that justifies looking for scientific insights later on?
Well, it flows directly into the absolute bedrock of Islamic belief, Tawhid, the absolute oneness of God.
Okay.
And if you consider the divine attributes, the Asma'ul Husna names like Al-Khaliq, the creator, and Al-Qayyum, the sustainer, they imply a universe built on order and precision.
I see. So God as sustainer implies consistent laws.
Exactly. It establishes the basis for an ordered, predictable cosmos. So investigating these stable laws through empirical science isn't just permitted. You could argue it becomes a pathway to contemplating the creator, a form of worship even.
That makes the jump to cosmology feel more natural then.
Yeah.
So when we look at the physical descriptions, what are some claims that really stand out as, ahead of their time? But hang on, isn't there a big risk here? Are we just reading modern science like the Big Bang back into old metaphors?
That risk is always there, absolutely. And critical scholars point that out, but some verses make that easy dismissal a bit difficult. Take Surah 21, verse 30. It talks about the heavens and the earth being a joined entity, which was then separated.
The joined entity bit sounds familiar.
It does. Many see a clear parallel to the initial singularity and the subsequent expansion. And what's perhaps even more specific is Surah 51, verse 47, which states, God is expanding it, referring to the heavens or the universe.
Expanding it. Present tense, ongoing.
Yeah, suggesting continuous cosmic expansion. And this was stated, centuries before Hubble actually confirmed the universe is expanding in the 20th century.
Okay, that is specific. Still, you often hear the strongest case for this. Ijaz isn't cosmology, but biology, specifically embryology. What makes those descriptions stand out, given, the lack of microscopes in 7th century Arabia?
It really comes down to the sequence and the details. The Quran outlines developmental stages, but Surah 23, verse 14, has this remarkable line. It says, bones were formed, then we clothed the bones with lam.
Lam, meaning flesh or muscle.
Exactly, muscle tissue. And modern embryology confirms that precise sequence. The skeletal framework begins to ossify, then the muscle tissue develops and wraps around it. Getting that order right without dissection or advanced observation is... well, it's striking. There's more. Like attributing the determination of the baby's sex to the nutfa, essentially, the drop of male semen. That points to the male gamete carrying the critical genetic information for sex determination.
So moving beyond just humans, the Quranic framework acknowledges other beings, right? Angels from light, jinn from smokeless fire, and humans from clay. Given God's title, Rab Alamin, Lord of the Worlds, plural, does this framework suggest life elsewhere?
The theology is inherently quite open to it, I'd say. Al-Alamin, the worlds, implies multiplicity right there in the title.
Multiple worlds, not just Earth.
Potentially. And Surah 42, verse 29, is even more explicit. It mentions God scattering dabba creatures, moving things throughout the heavens and the earth. That strongly suggests life isn't necessarily confined to our planet.
Okay, we've seen some really specific examples, but let's bring in the critical perspective. Where's the line?
Yeah.
Because you do see people linking verses to, say, time dilation theories or even black holes, and that feels like it requires a lot of stretching. Ta'wil over-interpretation.
And that tension is absolutely crucial to discuss. It has to be stressed. The Quran's primary aim is moral and spiritual guidance, not being a science textbook. The danger with excessive ta'wil is tying an eternal text to scientific theories that are, by their nature, temporary and subject to change. Science evolves.
So how should we view these scientific points then?
They're best understood as ayat signs, clues or pointers inviting contemplation, prompting reflection on the Creator's power and precision. They aren't meant to be final scientific statements. Binding the text too tightly to current science is risky.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway for you listening to this? How do you synthesize this potential overlap between faith and science?
I think the most profound takeaway might be how the text seems to weave together these moments of precise description, like the embryology, with a theological structure that fundamentally values seeking knowledge. It suggests the very act of inquiry, whether it's studying scripture or studying the natural world through a microscope, is framed as something deeply meaningful, perhaps even an act of worship. The search for knowledge itself seems embedded in the core message. That pursuit connects you to understanding the creation,